Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ashot Seferyan, Associate Dean and Director of Executive MBA, IBS Moscow, Russian Academy of National Economy and Public Administration. Today, our session on GAIDAR Forum is devoted to the very interesting topic. What's the role of media in creating a new image in business and education? And this is my honor and pleasure to introduce speakers at this session. Dmitriy Mescon, Executive Vice President and Chief Executive Officer, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, AACSB International. Andrew Jack, Global Education Editor, Financial Times. Andrew Main Wilson, Chief Executive, AMBA and BGA. Boris Shcherbakov, Vice President and General Management, Dell Technologies, Russia. Dmitriy Tolmachev, Director of Graduate School of Economics and Management of Ural Federal University and Head of Analytical Agency Expert, part of the Russian Business Media Group Expert. Welcome, gentlemen. Our life has changed completely for the past 2 years. We obviously and usually blame COVID. But if we would look much deeply, we would agree that the first signs of these changes came many years ago with digital transformation, ecological agenda, other issues which we were discussing for many years. But we have ignored them. Many years ago, American sociologist said very interesting quotation. Historical changes are taking place very slowly and then happen all of a sudden. And it happened. It's our case at the moment. But there is another problem that we assume that these difficulties will go by. And we will return to temporary life we had a couple of years ago. I'm sorry to say, but no way. We're living in a different world. We're living in a different society. And we have to live in these new normal conditions and try to find new ways how to deal with this new normal situation, within this new normal environment, and find maybe surely efficient ways and comfortable ways how to deal in this uncertain world. And there is one more situation. You know, first time in a human history, we have a unique situation when on a labor market, we have 5 generations altogether. From baby boomers, we are baby boomers, up to millennials. And they have absolutely different values, different perception of life, different working and life experience, and we have to deal all together. We have to match ourselves to the situation when we understand that the younger generation is much more keen in these new technologies, and they find the sources of information not from newspapers and TV as we do, but they're going to the social media, they're going to Facebook, Twitter, and whatever it is, and gaining information from there. And who cares what kind of information they are trying to find in these sources? And in this case, business schools, university have to adapt their products, they have to adapt what they are doing to this new generation because they are coming more and more. And also media, they have to adapt what they are writing in the newspapers, even if they are electronic, and to pay much more attention to the social network, to the social media, because most of our young customers will be really very keen to go to the social media rather than to open usual newspaper in the morning just at the breakfast. And I will stop my introduction, and I would like to give the floor to Dmitriy Mescon. He represents AACSB, the biggest or one of the biggest educational network in the world. You have the members, a lot of universities and business schools around the world, mostly in US, but in different parts of the globe. And you have to deal with the different cultures, and you have to deal with the different perceptions of business and life. What do you think, Tim? What should we do to create a new image for this unusual time?
Well, Ashot, a pleasure to be with you and to see Boris there next to you, my friend and our former European Advisory Council member, and only sorry that I could not be with you in Moscow for the seventh year in a row to talk a little bit directly with GAIDAR participants about this really important topic. I'm pleased to be with some wonderful colleagues as well. And Ashot, your question is spot on. We have now over 1,650 business school members in 105 countries or territories worldwide. It's an extraordinary reach, if you will, and gives us a lot of perspective. And I do want to make a little bit of a correction now. By far and away, Ashot, as we've grown globally, the majority of our members are most certainly now outside of the U.S., and we expect certainly within the next decade the number of AACSB accredited schools outside the U.S. will be far greater than they are in the U.S. currently. So a great shift in our 105-year history, and one that celebrates this topic of generations and the media. You might remember last year, Ashot, I spoke specifically about Gen Z and the challenges that our colleagues across business schools were going to face in reaching that generation, Gen Y, of course, as well, already, and how it absolutely embraces the issues that you have raised. I've shared a very simple picture on the screen that talks about the inevitability of change, Ashot. And we say today change is the norm, not the exception. In fact, as you indicated, we live in a life of constant change, constantly demanding that we reset in business education what we do and how we do it, and clearly technology and our technological platforms have a great deal to do with that, but that we're also constantly about not just high quality and continuous improvement, but about a constant commitment to reinvention as well. And we're seeing vast global partnerships across all the continents among our schools, and very dramatic responsiveness that is certainly technologically driven. I think it's very important when we talk about the components of high quality business schools that we remember these 5 fundamentals, Ashot, that really describe the very best of business educators worldwide, and none of these foundational beliefs will surprise anyone out there, but I want to emphasize this notion of being catalysts for innovation. Very, very important that business schools play a critical role in that arena, as well as co-creators of knowledge. And then I want to link this introductory comment, Ashot, with this issue of enablers of global prosperity, because we need to bring ESG into this discussion about media and technology and innovation and business schools, and the great drive the great role that we play with students across the world in enabling, in really serving as an incubator for global prosperity. And this ties in to societal engagement, societal impact, and the whole bigger topic, Ashot, of ESG as well. And I don't want to ignore that, because I think it's very, very important. And your reference to these 5 generations of working today, there's a great rallying now among younger generations that the media is playing a critical role in capturing and celebrating and challenging business schools. What is it that our schools are doing to support societal engagement, societal impact, and truly embrace this concept of enabling global prosperity? And so I thought I would just share just a couple more comments about this. I've had the pleasure of meeting Paul Pullman through RANEPA, been a very important opportunity for me. And the recent release of his book with Andrew Winston, where he talks about net positive and the ability of companies to thrive by giving more than they take, celebrates this phenomenon in a truly global scale of ESG and the role that we all have to play. And I'm going to connect this with media and with business schools in my very last slide momentarily. I love his statement, for their own good, companies must play an active role in solving our biggest shared challenges. The economy won't thrive unless people on the planet are thriving. This is all around this phenomenon of stakeholder capitalism. It's called different things in different parts of the globe, and we're seeing it now in real time with the creation of jobs globally tied to ESG. PwC announced search for 100,000 new staff members globally, and that many of these positions will be ESG connected, which means business schools worldwide have an obligation, have a responsibility to provide training, development, educational opportunities, both degree-related and non-degree related, lifelong learning opportunities in the ESG space. McKinsey rallied that, and a global recruiting firm with massive presence in Europe as well as around the world, saying the same things. The demands that they're seeing for ESG-related jobs is astonishing. The last slide I'd like to share, this business school response, and I think our colleague Andrew Jack in FT has had a great deal to do with this as they beat this drum around capturing societal impact and engagement. And all I'm sharing with you is a handful of global initiatives among member schools related to societal impact and engagement. And I've captured these, tried in different parts of the world, whether it's the American University of Cairo or the huge sustainability initiative at Antwerp Management School, or carbon literacy training in Nottingham Trent, what Coventry is doing around sustainable finance, ESMT as well, and then Duke's program in Business and Common Purpose, what Harvard's got in social enterprise, Yale environmental business. And don't forget those hundreds and hundreds of student-driven impact initiatives around the SDGs through the Prime organization and the great leadership that Metamorphosing is providing there. And then ESEG in Paris doing the same thing with a student CSR challenge. A lot of this has been celebrated, really led through the media, challenging business schools, and I think the response is incredibly gratifying. I don't think business schools are done yet by any stretch of the imagination. We're learning as we go, but I think it's a very exciting time. And I know my colleague, Andrew Main Wilson, will talk about this in great detail as well.
Thank you, Tim. And my question is to you, do you think these ESG topics should be a compulsory part of the programs? I mean, MBA program, master program, should this agenda be just at the front line of all the educational products?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Ashot. Now, I want to remind everybody, because I'm old enough to remember, I started as a much younger assistant professor at the Carey School at Arizona State University in the U.S. in 1979. My very first term, I taught a course called Business and Society, which was CSR, ESG focused. I think that what we've seen over these past 4+ decades is business schools globally are addressing this, some much more aggressively than others. They know it's a critical part of the corporate sector in terms of the demands for employment, but it's also being driven, Ashot, by students who are demanding this kind of content in their curriculum as well. And so I think we're seeing it. Our new AACSB standards, which were released last year, have a very critical component of required standards related to societal engagement and impact and thought leadership as well, tied to that. So I think it's inevitable. And we never use the word require, but I think we're going to see this continue extensively worldwide, and the sophistication of what schools offer will only get better and better sooner rather than later, Ashot.
Thank you very much, Tim. And I would like Andrew Jack to join the discussion. You're publishing during the every year a lot of rankings in executive MBA, MBA, master programs, executive education. And being a part of this process, I'm also filling your service as the director of executive MBA. I can say that for the past couple of years, you have dramatically changed the questions. And you have included not only, say, statistics, I mean, salary, gender, whatever, but also, first of all, you are paying attention on the ESG, on the agenda, which is going primarily to the quantitative things. And I want to ask you, do you think the media and primarily Financial Times can give exact information to this new generation coming to business schools, for them to understand properly what kind of jobs will be in a near future and what kind of knowledge they should gain from the university and business schools?
Thanks, Ashot, and it's great to be back here at the Guidor Forum and to be here on this panel with some familiar faces and friends. Let's hope, despite all the disruption that we're talking about, incidentally, that we can go back to one old-style pre-COVID tradition of meeting in person, perhaps hopefully from next year, because that personal contact remains still incredibly important in my view. But you're right, I mean, we're living through this huge era of disruption, and incidentally, from the point of view of the media, of course, we've been very much challenged over a number of years now by digital transformation. You know, the FT is no longer what I would call a newspaper. It's very much a multimedia organization with our editorial output, whether it's through business school rankings in a form of interactive online technologies, first and foremost, as well as in print, through video, through podcasts, through all sorts of graphics, and also, of course, a significant presence, which is relevant for this discussion, reaching out to readers wherever they happen to be. So on the social networks, for example, that they might be most comfortable using, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. And so we have to be present there, as I think do business schools as they try to communicate change. The other thing, of course, the disruption that we've seen in the last few years has been to that whole nature of interaction in information. You know, traditionally, perhaps the media were seen as gatekeepers who were providing the distilled source of insights that most people would turn to. Now, of course, the whole hierarchy has flipped, if you like. Anyone can be a publisher and produce opinions or facts. And equally, then there's much more of a networked approach, much more peer-to-peer insights and referrals in terms of where people go to get understanding. And of course, that whole disruption in terms of the output has also radically changed the business models and made it quite difficult for the media to find new sources of revenue to also sustain high quality journalism. So all of that intersects with your question about rankings and insights and trends. I mean, I don't think anybody, of course, has a monopoly or a comprehensive perspective or can provide full guidance. What we certainly try to do, both in the context of business education, is provide a selection of high quality data that goes into our rankings in a transparent way and in a way that can be distilled and segmented. So different users with different interests, whether it's ESG, as Tim was talking about, whether it's the more traditional return on investment, if you like, of salaries or costs of qualifications, whether it's in terms of subject areas and specialisms, all of those things can be broken down for analysis. But alongside that, there's a huge area that's much more qualitative. For example, talking about this question of responsible business education, we're about to launch next week, actually, a magazine and actually an online event discussing and showcasing some really great practices around responsible business education amongst academic research output, amongst teaching through an increasingly diverse range of teaching cases, and amongst alumni who've gone on to be change makers, whether in startups or disruptors within existing established companies and organizations. So all of that is taking place in the wider world. So a mixture of the qualitative and the quantitative in all sorts of different platforms. And our hope is that we can try to distill and respond to those trends to provide an increasingly wide range of insights that those who interact with business schools, whether it's prospective graduates, existing students or faculty, alumni, and then employers, whether they're engaging with business schools as recruiters or sources of insights and research or places that they want to go for thought leadership or continuing training, they can try to identify the trends and patterns and look for who is best to go to. So I think we certainly play a role in that. At the same time, and going back to our kind of underlying core question here about the role of the media in creating a new image, I think it's like with public relations, you know, the media can do so much, and I hope it will inform and educate and challenge and drive accountability. But, you know, we shouldn't start thinking about image. We should start thinking about substance and content. And, you know, you can only do so much if the underlying organizations and trends that you're reporting on are not evolving. So I think there's a big focus and demand on business schools, business educators to be thinking about what they're delivering, how they're reorientating to the new values and priorities and trends in society, and how far they themselves are actively engaging with their communities. One final example, and I'm sure we can then go back to more in questions, but for example, as part of our awards that we're announcing next week, we were asking precisely business schools and academics to talk about their societal impact. What are they doing in terms of their research, which has a real value and which can bring about change in policy or in practice? Now, there's an awful lot of business school research that's very theoretical and abstract and intellectual and largely designed for, quite rightly, academic internal debate and reflection. In my view, particularly in business schools, there needs to be a lot more that's very practical and outwards focused and really addressing the key challenges that we face going forwards, including climate change and purpose more generally. And I think sometimes even academics, when they're thinking about communicating their insights in a way that's really valuable for the future of business education, they might not think beyond the top priority because of the way academic promotion structures work of getting published in a prestigious peer-reviewed academic journal. What, in my view, they need to do more of is thinking about then not only the initial priority of what that research area should be, but how they can work with practitioners in government, in non-profits, in companies around the world to ensure and align that their research is going to be useful, and then think about how it can be disseminated in practice. And that goes to blogs, to engagement in interviews with journalists, but also to conferences and consulting and acting on advisory boards, and really trying to trace through from initial ideas and research to practice, tracking the impact, seeing what effect it's had, seeing what more could be done to be a force for positive change. But let me stop there, Ashot.
Thank you, Andrew. I can say that a lot of my personal information I'm gaining from your Facebook account of Financial Times. Every day you are publishing a lot of information, which is really very useful. But my question is, look, if we take even the rankings of executive MBA, I can notice that there are a lot of programs which working language is not English. I understand that English is a franco lingua for business community, but we are speaking in Russia, Chinese are speaking in Chinese, and in Latin America, a lot of schools are having their programs in Spanish. In this case, having this new image of business and business education, do you consider a necessity to have a special maybe sections or podcasts in different regional languages, which will enable a lot of people to tune to the very interesting information you are giving in your magazine, in your newspaper, but unfortunately some of the professors who are not speaking English, they cannot tune to this very important information.
It's a very good point. And, in this globalized world, I think we need to find ways to intersect and identify voices and try to find ways to translate for relevance in many different parts of the world and cultures and languages. There is a resource or a capacity constraint, if you like, on what we or other individual media organizations can do. As you say, we have offered translations in the past to allow students in executive education programs to respond in Russian, in Chinese, in French and Spanish, for example. But I think, at some point one has to try to prioritize and say, for example, for the FT, we're focused primarily on a global audience, and one where, as you say, for good or not, English is something of a lingua franca. And so that I think that will be a defining common denominator for a lot of our output. I think there are many other more specialist markets and focuses and organizations that can then do deeper dives that are relevant to particular countries or regions or other language groups. So we can do something in that direction. But I think it's also for many others to contribute both in offering local language alternatives, but also equally trying to translate different other languages into English so that they can plug into this global form of communication and let local insights resonate around the world. We would need very substantial additional resources to start doing systematic assessments or reporting in the Russian language and about all things Russian, and in Russian business schools focused on Russian language areas and topics and insights, for example. But I think we can provide a top level, and I think many other organizations could and should be involved in trying to translate in both directions for those really important different regional, local and national nuances around the world.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And now I would like just to turn to corporate life and the corporate examples of what is necessary and how it's necessary to do with this new image of the business, primarily business. And just continuing what we have discussed with Andrew, I will switch into Russian, which will be just an example how we can do just communicating in different languages.
Hello, Boris. In continuation of our conversation, how do you think a foreign global company that has arrived in a regional Russian market, in this particular case, where and how do you have to promote the ideas that the new world is about new requirements, new people, some new skills that new employees should have to be employed by you? Thank you for the question.
Continue speaking in Russian, although in fact, of course, I could have continued in English, but for the reasons that we're actually talking in the Russian audience, I would say more coverage will be assessed if I switch to Russian without translation. That'll be easier for most of the people to get the point. And my first point is that, oh, okay, I'm switching. I forgot about that.
My first point is that it's great that here we have the audience that, as a matter of principle, should have gathered together, because we're all working on a large common goal together. You're setting a goal. How should we together move us towards our bright future, and what kind of future is going to face us? And it's a common goal, and it's common work for business education, media, and many other participants, because we don't have government institutions present here, maybe some regulators. But it's important that we all convene here together and we're discussing the same thing. The so-called sustainable development or sustainable growth agenda, in our opinion, is the most important function of business. Sustainable means responsible. I have to play with words, Russian and English. So in the first place, it's about for business being responsible and predictable, so that the business should show a picture of the future and the progress of humanity. These are not lofty words. We're all representatives of a huge multi-billion humanity on this, multi-billion strong humanity on this planet. And we want this planet to give us the opportunity to live in this future. Some people call our current state as unexpected future. So actually one foot in this situation of an unexpected future, when all of a sudden it turned out that there are challenges, there are problems that the whole humankind is facing, regardless of their age or education or even access to the internet, however strange as it may seem. Because, as we all know, viruses don't spread over the internet, whereas in direct contact they do. Dell, as a company, was first formed, and it's the first function of any company is to earn money. Nobody denies that. But as early as in 1988, the founder of this company set some ethical code of ethics into the foundation of its business, which stipulated that you get something, you should give something, and you should make your business relevant to your suppliers, to your customers, and to your employees. Employees are part of any company. We operate in 180 countries of the world. We have about 150,000 employees. That's a huge bulk of people. Each of these people have families, relatives, friends who, one way or the other, depend on us as a technology giant. And of course, we are all interested in that the world should move towards the progress using these technology achievements of the fourth technology revolution that we're living in, and where Dell, I think, is playing quite an important role, being one of the largest companies providing infrastructure solutions for the new economy. New economy requires new thinking, new people, of course. So therefore, in terms of education, your previous question, whether you should make the ESG agenda mandatory as part of this education, in my opinion, it's natural, it's obvious, and we're moving towards that. For instance, Dell today has about 15,000 suppliers. That's a huge economic mechanism. And the selection of these suppliers is done with consideration given to their impact on the environment. We can't allow a situation so that some suppliers should not fit within our ESG code of ethics. If the company is producing a lot of products every second, we are producing or building some two devices, two PCs or servers or storage devices or network devices. So every second we produce two items. So this is a huge volume of products which should not be detrimental to the environment on this planet. We are reducing the emissions, and we make all our products recyclable. By 2030, we will make all our packaging recyclable as a minimum, and about 50% of all our products will also be recyclable. These are important elements. We should bear them in mind, and we should understand. We should make sure that people coming to our company should already be engaged in this. They should understand that just to produce some products that's important for progress is not enough. You should produce it in such a way that these products should really help the society and the humankind develop. These are not lofty words. It's the real situation, how Dell is built within itself. And when we enter some local market, be that France or Brazil or Russia is a good example, actually. Of course, so we're promoting this philosophy here as well, and we want people joining us from business schools should understand this philosophy, should share it, and only then they'll be happy with their work, because people not only work for money, people also work for an idea, and Dell is offering this big idea. And of course, in terms of mass media, it would be advisable that the picture presented should be unbiased, so that unnecessary scandals or hypes should be avoided, which is of course impossible because people will always hunt for some scandalous things. And Dell, as any company, also has lots of things about itself that can be of interest both to the public at large and to specific professional groups. So I think from our side, we both provide enough content and are also a user of the right talent, the right professionals who should join us, share our values, and help the company do what we're doing now. This is a huge layer of digital transformation that spans the world. Russia is not an exception. All our customers are either on this road or approaching this road. Unfortunately, there are not too many, perhaps only 8 to 10 Russian companies, I'm talking with a Russian audience, are actively working on digital transformation. A lot of discussions is going on. Many companies are sitting on the fence. But I must say that this picture is not really that different from the world. We are not lagging behind. We're also moving in the mainstream of digital transformation. And we as a company are prepared to discuss all these subjects. Thank you. Thank you.
My question is to Andrew Wilson. AMBA is almost the only accreditation body in the world who is responsible for the programs which are retraining managers. And what is your agenda for the near future? Because you have a lot of programs in Russia accredited, a lot of programs in India, in China, worldwide. How do you see the programs should be changed according to the new environment in this new normal?
Thank you very much, Ashot. And like Andrew and Tim, I just want to express my sadness that I can't be with you in person. I've been coming and presenting at the GAIDAR Forum every year since January 2015. And like Andrew and Tim, I very much hope to be back with you this time next year. So Ashot, I'm going to focus exactly as you said on how I think these new programs, these new methods should be promoted by business schools. And just in terms of background, the AMBA network is now 290 business schools in 70 countries. And when you take the BGA network as well, I think what's shown about new media possibilities, which I'm keen to champion with schools, is the BGA network is now 190 schools as members. And already we've got 12 of those accredited. But BGA has its 3rd birthday next Friday. There were no schools at all in the BGA network 3 years ago, which means that BGA has had to promote itself in the business school arena for 23 out of 36 months, where we've not been able to see a single customer face to face. So I think that shows that you should be really excited as business schools that with digital media and digital communications, you can still grow your alumni network and your student network. The next question I'd pose to you moving forward is, how often do you communicate with your alumni? Because I firmly believe that the path to growth for most schools, particularly in Russia, lies with existing alumni. And rather than look upon those students and managers as people for whom you're selling a 2 to 4 year one-off degree program, aim to build from day one a lifelong relationship through digital media with those students, such that you sell them some just-in-time updated information and education every single year. And by way of example, I'm a Harvard Business School alumnus, and Harvard send me an email every single day of the year, including weekends. Now, Harvard aren't stupid. They know that that risks annoying and irritating alumni, but they've worked out that it's still more important to do that with that level of communication than not to do that level of communication. So I ask the question again, how often do you communicate with your alumni and or potential students? And probably in this digital media world, it should be much more frequently than you currently do now. So I think what we're looking at here is a quantum leap, a change of mindset, where business schools evolve from promoting those simple 2 to 4 year degree programs to a 40-year lifespan. As you say, Ashot, it's even more complicated than that because there are 5 generations to communicate to. And quite simply, there are those in their 20s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So you need to leverage big data and artificial intelligence, in my view, as a business school, to have a media and communications plan to communicate with every single student in terms of their own interest. And where it is slightly easier is that whatever your age, each year, whether you're 25 or 62, you will find that those managers need to learn some of the same new skills. So you might communicate with them through different channels based on age, but what they need to learn to keep updated is the same. So in this quantum leap, I think, and I would recommend for each business school to put more investment in alumni relations marketing, such that you can build an individual profile for every alumni based upon their past educational record with you, their career history, and their future career ambitions. And what that gives you is an educational roadmap of future learning needs. And I feel that for schools to succeed, and the best ones are already doing it, they've set as their objective to communicate and be the primary management education brand for those students for the next 40 years, not just the next 2 or 3 years. And EduTech enables you to do that now. And you'll find that there are some global virtual education brands who are building those very profiles now. And because they're venture capitalist backed, have enormous money to spend on social media promoting it. But I think as business schools, your communication strategy, you have some advantages that they don't. Firstly, you have the content, and you can package up and communicate each year the content that you're creating to teach on campus for your existing students. They don't have that content, and it costs you no more to create it, but you've just got to convert it to digital soundbite programs and modules. Then secondly, you do still have campuses, and those campuses are a huge competitive advantage because the new tech virtual only education brands don't want the capital cost of campuses. They don't have the professorial staff either. So they're trying to sell you everything virtually. And I would say take ownership of the student from day one, because often most students, the reality is they did their first degree at the university that the business school belongs to. So build the relationship right from the start of their business education journey. They have their first positive experience with you. And whilst you can't match these global VC-backed brands for media spend, you don't need to, because you've got your own direct communication channel with alumni through your own alumni relations. Then secondly, I would say that potential students are very reassured by both rankings and accreditation. And I might talk about that briefly if we have time. But they really want more and more detailed information. And I'm very impressed with one organization who we now partner with called Unibuddy. And what they have done is they've created through AI and big data an IT platform which they put into each of their partner business schools and buddy up with a group of existing students inside the school. Those students are paid a small amount of money to be constantly available by social media or email, or even in cases face-to-face, to advise any questions that a potential student may want to know about that particular business school. And because there are so many students involved, let's say a student from, I don't know, Svetlogorsk or Murmansk can ask someone at that Moscow or St. Petersburg business school, a current student, how it is in terms of teaching, life in the city, quality of alumni relations. So you get, through big data and AI, a one-to-one advisor inside the school. And I think that's a really neat idea. And again, only possible through high tech. It's the optimum mix of high technology on the one hand and personal face-to-face communication and reassurance on the other. And Unibuddy track very closely the conversion rates of student inquiries that actually lead up to student applications. and the participating business schools have noticed there's a much higher conversion rate of inquiry to application student for those who've had the Unibuddy network within their school. So I'm mindful of time, Ashot, and I know we've got one more speaker.
And thank you
I'm going to finish here.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And you have mentioned this problem of the people living in different regions and the necessity for them to gain an additional information. And we are lucky because we have on a panel a person who is living in the heart of Russian industrial region in Urals. And Dmitry was an editor of a newspaper, and Dmitry is at the moment director of a business school. So my question to him, and it will be in Russian, is: Dmitry, скажите, пожалуйста, достаточно коротко, если можно.
Dmitry, can you tell us very briefly what's important for people today in terms of new professions, new prospects, new skills, what they need to be taught, and how to build relationships with potential customers who come to your business school in Yekaterinburg? Thank you very much, Ashot, for the question. I apologize for the quality of the internet, so they asked me to disable video so that you could hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, we can. Good. You know, I don't claim to give you a comprehensive answer to this question, but I'd like to mention two points that we've been observing in our region, in the Urals. Firstly, we are encountering a very serious shortage of competences and skills in the new economy. In the first place, it's about competences that have to do with digital. If in the Russian Federation there are quite a lot, maybe about a dozen major cities where the IT sector is quite well developed. Not only IT, I mean the sector that exerts demands for new IT competences. It's the new economy, financial services, and others. So Yekaterinburg, among this dozen centers, is the city with the most strain in the employment market. And we see reflections of that in vacancies and salaries. So a search for an answer to this question. Dmitry, how can you try to make it so that talents should be attracted, so that people would want to come to you, and so that your companies should have modern professionals? Well, there are two components to it. First is about attracting people from other regions. And here, I don't see any alternatives. Talking about other regions, I'm not only talking about the Russian Federation. Yeah, I'm talking about CIS countries, Asian countries in Asia. A huge campus is being built in Yekaterinburg, and one of the purposes behind building this university campus is to attract students from other regions. Not only students, but also talented school children. That's a separate topic. And the second component is a system of fast retraining for adults. Briefly, this is all. Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, the time is running up.
And I will again switch into English. And I would like to ask probably Andrew Jack, do you think it is necessary to have a cooperation in between media centers, I mean newspapers, TV channels, social networks throughout the world in different regions, and to combine their vision of what is necessary to promote and how it is necessary to promote these new ideas for the new normal situation?
Well, I think, the media, like business and like many other things, is many different organizations, and they're very competitive on the whole, nothing more so than journalists and their editors keen to be first with the news. So that's the starting point, I think. And then, of course, again, like pretty much every business school or company, of course, each of them is home to a particular group of readers, geographers, priorities in terms of topics and so on. So there's only a limited amount where you can get full cooperation. On the other hand, I think clearly you do see partnerships, certainly between, sometimes you see it between different media outlets that might specialize in one topic or geography with others in different ones. You see interesting partnerships, for example, with the Google News Initiative, so with platforms. You see sometimes, for example, mainstream media working with non-profit groups like the Center for Investigative Journalism or ProPublica, so where they're bringing different skill sets together. And then you do see these alliances sometimes between different media groups in sort of that see themselves as competitors in different parts of the world. So there are some formal opportunities for cooperation, if you like. But I think the other side of it is more that, of course, media are always looking over their shoulders to try to identify what's going on and who else is doing what. And I'd certainly like to think that, if you're talking about the big existential themes we've been discussing, disruption, digital, climate change, ESG, more generally, purpose, the kind of post-COVID world, clearly it might not be through formal cooperation, but it might be through a lot of observation of what else is being written, that you can drive an agenda, a consensus, a greater focus on the issues that matter. We saw it to some degree with COP26, for example, the climate talks in Glasgow. It clearly did become a moment when many different media organizations, as well as companies, even business schools, came together to develop or enhance or take advantage of a moment to showcase the activities that they were doing. So I think that's probably, a lot of it is much more informal than through formal cooperation, unless you had, Ashot, any specific examples in mind.
Unfortunately, time is running out, and I can say that today we had absolutely brilliant discussion, but I think it is just a starting point. And I hope that next year we will meet here in Moscow and in person, not only in these studios, but also just outside these studios. We can have discussions, we can have some negotiations and talks, which will bring us to new dimensions, to new conclusions, and will create this world much better, much more efficient, and I would say much safer, because we need to live in a society which is not everything predictable, but it is really nice to live in. So I would like to say to you, Happy New Year. I wish all of you to be healthy. I wish you to be prosperity for you, all of you, and hope next January 2023 I will welcome you here in Moscow and we'll shake our hands. Thank you very much, and thank you for this session. Thank you.
Hi guys.
Thank you very much.